Chairman, we're ready to go.
Okay, very good. Thank you. I'd like to call this November 7th, 2023 meeting of the Henderson City County Planning Commission to order. I want to welcome everybody. Thank you all for coming. We appreciate your help. And Madam Secretary, could you call the roll, please?
Yes, thank you. David Dixon.
Here?
Kevin Richard.
Here.
Bobby Jarrett. Mac Arnold.
Here.
XR Royster.
Here.
Dickie Johnson. Gary Gibson.
Here.
Gray Hodge. Stacy Denton.
Here.
Kevin Herron.
Here.
Frank Boyette.
Here.
Heather Tace.
Here.
Do we have a quorum?
We do.
Thank you very much. We've got some business to attend to in public hearing this evening. I'll entertain a motion to enter public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of going into public hearing, say yes.
Yes.
Anybody opposed? Very good. We are in public hearing. The first order of business is the approval of the October 3 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, make a motion to approve the October 3rd, 2023 minutes as distributed.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of approving the minutes, say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Minutes are approved. Next item of business involves an alleyway closure request on 2nd Street. I think Mr. Boone is going to help us with that tonight. This is our city engineer. Need your name, sir?
Doug Boone, 222 First Street.
Good. You promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Very good. Thank you very much.
So basically, the closure is required for consolidation of the lot for the fire station. Either one. Is that the one I gave you? That's the surveyor's drawing, showing the closure. We're closing it up to 100 feet to the property line on North Ingram. Stopping there. And of course, we will have the 2nd Street changed on the First Street side.
This is to allow for the new fire station.
Yes, for the consolidation of the lot.
By all means.
I just have a question. Does it make any difference that we've got 2 2nd Streets on that plat?
It'll get changed.
Okay.
I was confused momentarily myself. Any questions for this gentleman? Very good, thank you, sir.
But
Do we have anybody else here tonight that'd like to speak in favor of this alley closure? Do we have anybody here this evening who might have questions about it or be in opposition to it? No questions from the commission? I'll entertain a motion in regard to this alleyway closure request.
I'll make the motion to close the alley.
Do we want to go ahead and read this description into the record?
We typically have not in the past,
Okay.
but I believe it's the pleasure of the Planning Commission that they would like for it to be read.
I'll be glad to read it if you want.
Not necessary.
Okay.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Heather Tace.
Yes.
Frank Boyette.
Yes.
Kevin Herron.
Yes.
Stacy Denton.
Yes.
Gary Gibson.
Yes.
XR Royster.
Yes.
Mac Arnold.
Yes.
Kevin Richard.
Yes.
David Dixon. Or, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Scratch David Dixon.
I'm for it too. Very good, thank you. Next item is the rezoning 1156. I think Mr. Bishop is going to help us on this one.
Yes, sir. Rezoning 1156 with a narrative development plan submitted by MHO LLC for the property located in Henderson County at 2440 Toyanth Austin Road, being parcel ID number 77-7, containing approximately 35.606 acres. The applicants are requesting a zoning change map amendment with a narrative development plan from agricultural to M1 light industrial to develop an industrial-sized battery energy storage system. Originally, the plan was for this rezoning to be heard in conjunction with the site plan. But after speaking with the applicants and with their technical advisors that have been helping with this, staff and the related parties have decided that it's probably best for this site plan to be withdrawn. It will come back to the Planning Commission at a later time once we have more information. From a staff standpoint, we did not feel real comfortable making a recommendation because there's still a lot that we do not know about battery energy storage systems. We have been working in conjunction with the city technical advisors like Mr. Anderson and Mr. Dixon from the fire department. At this point, the staff would still recommend that the rezoning go forward, and then the site plan come back at a later date when we have a better understanding of battery energy systems, storage systems, excuse me. With that, I believe the applicant would like to make a presentation, and I'll do my best to answer any questions that you might have. And we have provided a proposed motion and findings of fact in favor of the rezoning.
Do we have any questions for staff? If we look ahead in the agenda, we see that the city is proposing changes to their zoning ordinance.
That is correct.
Same type of facility.
That is correct. This project is located in the county. The county has currently not passed an ordinance that would regulate battery energy storage systems. We are working with the county at this time, but at this point, they have not. So two separate items on the agenda. This is specifically for the county regarding the rezoning, and the ordinance regulating these systems is in the city. So those ordinances will not be relevant to this rezoning application.
Well, we do expect the county to come up with some type of an ordinance that would address this.
We do. The staff recommendation would be that it be very similar to the city's ordinance so that there's conformity amongst the systems in the same area, in the same community, in a sense.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Would the applicant like to address the commission? I'll need your name, sir.
There, okay.
I'll need your name, sir.
Okay, yes, good evening. Jared Pitts,
Address?
300 East John Carpenter Freeway, Irving, Texas.
Do you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Very good, thank you.
Yes, good evening, members of the Planning Commission. As I mentioned, my name is Jared Pitts. I'm a Senior Director of Development with Tenaska. Tenaska is developing the Yellow Throat Energy Storage Project.
Sorry, 1 second. Before we get started, after discussing it with TJ, would the attorney mind opening the statement, and then you can come in as an expert witness?
He can call it.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone.
Your name, sir?
Gregory Dutton,
Your address?
400 West Market, Louisville, Kentucky.
You promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do, sir.
Thank you very much. What else do we require of this gentleman?
It's his presentation. It just has to be presented by an attorney.
Okay, very good, very good.
Mr. Chairman, my plan was to allow my colleague to open the presentation with some basic information, and then I was going to take it from there. With your consent, I'd like to proceed in that manner.
Very good, please do.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I think I got you on the record.
Okay, great. All right. So Tenaska is developing the Yellow Throat Energy Storage Project in Henderson County. This project represents an over $300 million investment with an estimated $25 million of property tax revenue over the life of the project. We are here this evening requesting a zoning map amendment in support of this project, and we've prepared this short presentation to detail our team, company, as well as additional details around our zoning map amendment. I'd like to briefly introduce our project team in attendance. I'm joined by my colleagues James Hingston and Blair Debin at Tenaska. James is managing project development and Blair is managing project engineering. I'm also joined by Greg Dutton with Frost Brown Todd, who is our legal counsel, and Tiffany Allerson with Aileron Communication, who supports community outreach for the project. I'd also like to share some information about Tenaska, who is leading the development of this project. Tenaska is headquartered in Omaha, Nebraska, and has over 35 years of experience in the energy industry. We are consistently ranked as one of the largest privately held companies in the U.S. and have been recognized as being one of the best managed companies. Tenaska has developed, managed, and/or operated 22 gigawatts of generation, which represents over $20 billion of investment. Our projects have consistently been recognized and awarded for safety in the industry. So thank you. I'd now like to turn it over to Greg Dutton, who will discuss additional information regarding our zoning map amendment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for this gentleman before you sit down? Okay, thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies, gentlemen of the commission, we appreciate your time and your attention this evening. So, before I start, we're here tonight seeking your recommendation for a map amendment to M1. Before I get into the details and the justification for that map amendment, I want to briefly talk about the other approvals that we'll need before this project ever goes to construction. We'll need a conditional use permit from BOZA. We'll need site plan approval from this body. We'll need siting board approval from the state. We'll need a stormwater permit from the Division of Water. And we'll need a building permit from this body. So we view tonight as sort of the first step in a multi-purpose step in getting this project to construction. So the question before you tonight is relatively simple. As opposed to does this comply and is this in line with the comprehensive plan, this is actually a little bit different because we're asking whether there have been major changes of an economic, physical, or social nature to the area that were not anticipated by the comprehensive plan, and whether or not those changes substantially alter the basic character of the area. If you've seen the staff report, which I imagine you all have by now, staff as well as us, we all agree that that is the case. What you see before you is essentially a map of the parcel that we're talking about. So the red portion is actually not our parcel. That's the Big River substation that has been built right there on Toy-Antheston Road. The yellow and the green portion is our parcel that we're proposing to have zoned as M1. That's 35 acres. The green portion is where our project is currently proposed to be located. So we'll have to come before you again with the site plan before we get that approved, but just to give you some idea of what it is that we're talking about. So as you can see, there's the Big River substation that really sort of dominates this parcel, especially from the Toy-Antheston perspective. And speaking of perspective, this is what you see from the Toy-Antheston Road. So this picture on the left is specifically looking directly at our parcel. So if you were to imagine where our project is to be sited, it's almost in the center of that left picture, but behind the Big River substation. For a little bit of perspective here in the photo, the towers that you're looking at there are approximately 100 feet tall, and the batteries that we are proposing to have sited on the parcel behind this are roughly 10 feet tall. So as you can see, once the project gets developed, you're mostly still just going to see the Big River substation. The second picture is a little bit further up the road to give you a different viewpoint. So why is it that we believe that there have been changes not anticipated by the comprehensive plan? As you can see from the last photo, there's obviously a big change with this enormous substation located there. There have also been changes to the county. The Pratt Industries paper mill, the Henderson Distilling Company, the development of Sandy Lee Watkins Industrial Site, all of these have changed the county through into a position where the county now has greater needs for energy as well as grid reliability. The staff report itself talks about the comprehensive plan did not anticipate the need to enhance the electrical grid reliability or the location of the Big Rivers substation. Additionally, the comprehensive plan did not anticipate the increase of green energy technology on the Henderson's power grid, which is what we're here today to talk about. Additionally, I'll just point out there have been retirements of coal-fired power plants. There have been renewable energy developed around. And these all sort of have changed the character, not just of this area, but really of the grid itself. One final point that I wanted to touch on is the property is currently used for agricultural use. It's 35 acres. Henderson County has approximately 120,000 acres of agricultural property in it. So this would change 0.0197% of the agricultural land in Henderson County. So this isn't, we're not taking thousands of acres out. This is a relatively de minimis amount of agricultural property that we're taking out. And with that, we would just ask that this body approve our application to amend the zoning map to M1. And with that, we're happy to take any questions. We have several experts here, as Jared outlined, that are they're happy to answer any questions from you or the public.
Any questions for this gentleman from the commission?
So I guess I had one question, Mr. Dutton, just to kind of familiarize myself, because this is new technology, and we'll probably get into this more next steps, site plan and such, so, but facilities like this, are they rated in megawatts, or what's the unit of measure on a battery system?
Yeah, that's correct. They're rated in megawatts. The one that we had talked about, they've put our site plan up that we were originally planning to propose, but have not proposed this evening. We were talking about a 200 megawatt battery storage project.
Just curious factor scale and the correct term to use, so megawatts is, okay.
That's
Thank you,
correct.
sir.
What type of environmental impacts?
So battery storage essentially have almost no environmental impacts. They don't have air emissions. They don't have water emissions. They don't create hazardous waste. So this isn't like a factory where you're going to have sort of ongoing emissions where you're going to need permits. You need a stormwater permit to build it, but that's because for anything that's over 10 acres, you essentially need a stormwater construction permit, especially because it's located on an industrial property. But once it starts to operate, there are correct me if I'm wrong, there are no environmental permits that are necessary.
No noise. Does it generate noise?
Yeah, again, so there is some noise that is generated by the batteries, depending on which particular battery we would use, and that decision hasn't been made at this point, which is part of the reason that we're not moving forward with the site plan at this point. There is some noise that is generated, but it's, I think for the majority of them, and I'm now guessing, which I always tell them not to do, but I'm guessing a little bit. For the most part, they're under 80 decibels. Thank you.
I think that when we get to this city's proposed amendment to their zoning ordinance, there's some discussion of noise. There's a reference here to electromagnetic interference with various types of communication. Is that anything?
Blair, do you want to talk about EMF?
Yeah, so.
Why don't you come on up? I think they're going to
Yes.
want you to get sworn in.
Your name, sir?
Yep, Blair Debon,
Your address?
8920 North 158th Street, Bennington, Nebraska.
Promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
What can you tell us about environmental impacts?
Yeah, so as Greg has pointed out, there are no air emissions for our project. There are no hazardous runoffs. During normal operation, there's no emissions from our project. And then in terms of noise, most of these containers, they operate around 75 dB or 75 decibels. The primary generating portion of our project that makes noise is the HVAC system. And so the sound would be similar to a commercial HVAC system. And then that noise decreases as you get further from our project. And we are in a relatively remote location. So for nearest noise receptors, we haven't done a noise study, but it will be a very minimal impact.
What about this electromagnetic interference with various types of communication?
Sure. So with EMF, it's primarily related to AC currents. Batteries store electricity chemically. So the batteries themselves will actually produce virtually no EMF. There is some EMF produced with our GenTie, which is essentially our transmission line from our project site to the Big River substation. But that's just standard, transmission line EMF. There's nothing different about our project as opposed to just a standard transmission line.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for this gentleman?
Yes, one thing, and I guess it's that recently I have just been reading some about battery storage and reference to the fires. And I'm assuming that's part where you said the HVAC system has to keep the area cool inside there where they're stored. But what is the concern? I mean, are there certain batteries that are more prone to this than other batteries? Or
Jed, do you want to talk about this quickly? So I'll just say that part of the reason that we don't have our site plan here tonight is that we have been in coordination and in cooperation with the local fire departments. there were some additional concerns about that, which is part of the reason that we pulled our site plan, which is why we're just simply talking about the map amendment tonight. So when we come before you with the site plan, we'll have that fleshed out and some of these concerns better able to be addressed. So at this point, we're limited to the map amendment. But Jared, do you have anything to add to that? Feel free to come on up. Again.
Not much to add. I want to reiterate, we have met with the fire department. We're committed to meeting with them throughout this process and ensuring that they are comfortable with our project. And certainly, as you know, there's a lot of additional steps with the site plan, CUP, and we're committed to engaging with them and making sure they're comfortable with our project.
What do you foresee for the rest of that lot? A whole lot of ground that's not involved in this project.
Were we going to have grass or gravel on the rest of it? You know?
Yeah, so, sure, I can take that one. So for our project site, the disturbed area is obviously batteries. We have our road and our gentai. For the rest of the site, we would be open certainly to allowing that to be. We've not worked on any such arrangements, but that's certainly something we would be open to.
Looking at the map right there, the lines, I'm assuming that's either right-of-way area for is it electrical transmission lines or what?
There's two existing gas lines and electrical transmission line that are currently there on the property.
So basically, that's in there. That's one reason why you've got to be down there in that corner, because you can't be right on top of the gas lines or whatever else.
Correct. We didn't quite fit on the west side of those lines between the substation and those lines. So rather than split our parcel in half, or our project in half, we had to go to the east side of those lines.
Any other questions for these gentlemen? Thank you, guys.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here this evening who'd like to speak in favor of this rezoning? Is there anyone here this evening who might have some further questions or would like to express some opposition to this rezoning? Mr. Bishop, would you like to share your proposed motion
Yes,
and
sir.
findings
I can
of
do
fact?
Rezoning 1156 with a narrative development plan was submitted by MHO LLC for the property located in Henderson County at 2440 Toy Austin Road, being parcel ID number 77-7, containing approximately 35.606 acres. The applicants request a zoning change map amendment with a narrative development plan from agricultural to light industrial to develop an industrial-sized battery energy storage facility. The proposed motion is, I move that the Planning Commission recommend that the Henderson County Fiscal Court, the county, approve rezoning application 1156, changing the zoning classification from agricultural to light industrial, subject to the narrative development plan, to develop an industrial-sized battery energy storage system facility, subject to the site plan being later approved by the Planning Commission and subject to the applicant obtaining a conditional use permit from the Henderson County Board of Zoning Adjustment. I leave the motion open for other members of the Planning Commission to add findings of fact in support of this motion because the proposed rezoning is not in agreement with the future land use map of the comprehensive plan. However, due to major changes of an economic, fiscal, or social nature within the area, which were not anticipated in the adopted comprehensive plan, which have substantially altered the basic character of the area, and the existing zoning classification being inappropriate and the requested map amendment zone change set out above being appropriate among other things because the Big Rivers has constructed a switching station and a high voltage transmission line adjacent to the site, making this development possible. Green energy generating capacity is currently being developed in the area, increasing peak unused power, which is available to be stored and reintroduced into the grid at a high demand time, at high demand times. Battery storage is necessary in order to have a more reliable grid. Battery storage is necessary to take excess power off the grid in low usage times and put it back on the grid during high demand times. The proposed rezoning is in agreement with the following elements of the adopted comprehensive plan. Balancing land use, goal number 1, wisely plan for land uses in appropriate locations to maximize quality design and minimize the adverse impacts of development. Objective F, encourage innovative, safe, and sustainable design for new development and/or infrastructure. Protecting natural systems, goal number 1, protect and enhance the quality of natural environment while permitting appropriate development on suitable lands. Objective D, anticipate future community needs by encouraging environmentally sustainable uses of natural resources. Objective D, incorporate green infrastructure principles into new plans and development.
Very good, thank you. Any questions from the commission? Comments? Anybody else have anything to share on this topic, one way or the other? I'll entertain a motion in regard to rezoning 1156.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I've already opened my mouth once.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to adopt the proposed motion as my final motion, as my official motion on this approval of rezoning 1156, with an additional finding that there has been increased industrial footprint in this county that was not here when we did the last comprehensive plan update.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Kevin Richard.
Yes.
Mac Arnold.
Yes.
XR Royster. Gary Gibson.
Yes.
Stacy Denton.
Yes.
Kevin Herron.
Yes.
Frank Boyette.
Yes.
Heather Tays.
Yes.
Very good, thank you. Motion passes. Next item in the public hearing portion of our meeting is some proposed amendments to the city zoning ordinance. I think the city attorney is going to help with this.
Actually, the first one, Steve.
Okay, good. Need your name, sir,
Steve Davis,
and address.
1990 Barrett Court, Suite B. I
Promise
do-
to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, sir, I do.
Before we get started, I'm sorry. Y'all need to leave or something to get back home or whatever, you can feel free to do so. Totally up to you.
I think we'll probably stay for this, and then we'll go, if that's okay with you.
Whatever you're welcome, anytime.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Go ahead.
Okay, so we are wanting to amend the zoning ordinance with a place to put towing recovery yards. We don't have it in our Appendix A at this point, just to bring clarity and to have a place for those to go. In the past, what we've done is if it fit, if we had in the past put it in that zone, we allowed it to go in that zone. But we wanted to make something a little bit more clear, so we decided to put towing recovery yards in M1 with a conditional use and M2 as a permitted use. And you can see in the definitions, we added towing services and towing recovery yard. And then in Article 23, M1 light industrial, it is a conditional use. And Article 24, M2 heavy industrial, it is a permitted use. That's basically what we've done with this. I'll entertain any questions.
Any questions from the commission?
So you may have said it, but I was processing while you were, so currently towing recovery is only a conditional use? There's no official
Currently-
zoning that has a permitted use?
Currently, towing recovery could go anywhere because it's not anywhere.
Okay, so there's no
There's
zoning that
there's
even
no
has
set
it as
place
a
for it to
conditional?
be.
Okay,
right.
okay, thank you.
And we've run into this on several occasions. That's why we decided to go ahead and define a place for it.
So the permitted zones would be light industrial and heavy industrial.
The permitted zone is heavy industrial, and then it's a conditional use in light industrial. So it would have to go before the Board of Zoning Adjustment.
So it would not fit in general business, for
No,
example?
sir, would not fit in highway commercial, which we currently do have some, and we've had problems in the past. So-
That was my question. How many non-conforming uses are we going to create? I'm kind of putting you on the spot there. I know.
3, according to the
Is
city
that right?
attorney. 3,
Okay.
so.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to address the issue of towing services? How to properly fit them into the zoning ordinance? Okay, I guess we'll move on then.
You want to vote on that one?
We want to, how are we going to do this?
Sure. Dawn, can you come to the mic, please, so that way it's being into the record? Into the record.
I didn't know if you wanted to vote on these separately.
Your name, please?
Dawn Kelsey,
Address?
637 North Main Street.
You promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay.
How would you prefer?
I think you might want to vote on that one first.
Okay, thank you. I'll entertain a motion in regard to the discussed amendments to the city zoning ordinance having to do with towing services.
Just to confirm, Mr. Chairman, this is a recommend for the city to approve, or this is an
It
approval?
is. Yeah.
Very good. We're making a recommendation for the city commission's consideration. Just as the rezoning was a recommendation to the county as well.
Correct.
Right. So what do we think about this? We have more questions about towing?
I'll make a motion that we approve this amendment to the city zoning ordinance. I'll recommend to the city commission that they adopt this change to the city zoning ordinance.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Kevin Richards.
Yes.
Mac Arnold.
Yes.
XR Royster.
Yes.
Gary Gibson.
Yes.
Stacy Denton.
Yes.
Kevin Herron.
Yes.
Frank Boyette.
Yes.
Heather Tace.
Yes.
Good, thank you. Motion passes, and we're going to move on to the city attorney's presentation.
Chairman, may I ask Matt Anderson, who is our new fire marshal, to come, because he's going to have some comments on our presentation, and you go ahead and swear him in as well?
Okay, your name, sir?
Matt Anderson, 332 Washington Street.
You promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, thank you very much.
Thank you. As you all heard, battery technology is a new, battery energy storage system is a new technology. There are a lot of questions, a lot of concerns about it, but we also recognize that, this is the future. And so we, as the city, have a working group that started looking at putting together an ordinance for this. The first part of the ordinance, which you all have in front of you, what we are proposing to do is to take our solar energy ordinance, which is in section 4.22 of the zoning ordinance, and move it to a brand new chapter that we would call renewable energy system. Nothing would change, just the number and where it's located, because we feel like we should put that together with our proposed battery energy system. So that's the first part of that. So, in chapter 39, we would also add as 36.02 the battery energy storage system ordinance. Under this ordinance, we would propose a two-tier system. Tier 1 battery energy storage systems would be under 600 kWh, and then Tier 2 would be battery energy systems that have an aggregate energy capacity greater than 600. It specifically exempts standalone 12-volt car batteries or electric vehicles. So this would not cover your Tesla or the battery that you may have for your golf cart or your ATV. That's not what we're looking for here. We're looking at battery energy systems. Tier 1 are the batteries that generally are on residential and commercial solar panels. So if you have a solar panel in your house, you may have a Tier 1 battery. The Tier 2 battery energy storage system look like this. We talked with Yellow Throat yesterday. Theirs were more horizontal. These seem more vertical. Theirs seem more horizontal. But this is pretty much what they look at. or look like. A lot of them are put next to substations because they're able to go online when the grid needs the extra power. And so I just kind of wanted you all to look at them so you all kind of have an idea of what we're talking about here. So the first section is definitions. And all we did in our definition section is adopt those industry standard definitions. So these are the definitions that you'll find in other battery energy ordinances. I don't think that there's anything unusual in those that would, they're just pretty standard on these. So on zoning. So when we got to the zoning, we really worked hard on trying to figure out where the appropriate zone would be for this. Tier 1 batteries, they're permitted in all zones except for 2, and that would be Riverfront 1 and Riverfront 3. Riverfront 1 is for recreational use, Riverfront 3 is for green zones. So we didn't feel like they would be appropriate in those areas, but any other area, our proposal is to allow Tier 1 batteries. I'm having trouble getting all my stuff up here. So Tier 2 batteries, after a lot of discussion, we believe that the best use at this point, or the best place, would be in an M2 heavy industrial district and do it as a conditional use. I will tell you that.
Even in a heavy industrial, it'll be conditional use.
Yes, because we'll want to make sure, we're going to get to some maps and I'm going to show you why in just a minute, okay? So, I will tell you that when we look at these, and Matt will talk to you in a second, there are some states that have placed moratoriums on placing any battery energy storages. There are communities that have placed moratoriums on bringing in new battery storage. The issue on battery storage is, for one thing, fires. It's thermal runaway. Some of these have thermal runaways, and then they have off-gassing. And because of that, the general recommendation is when these things happen, that you do an evacuation within a quarter mile and you do a stay in place within a half mile until the air quality reports are in, until they can clear those. The other issues you have with these is the fires, once you have thermal runaway, exist for a couple of days. It's not a fire that can be put out with water. Generally, you let them burn themselves out. And so when we spoke with a community yesterday, Warwick, New York, and we talked with their individuals that had to deal with that, we asked them what, if anything, they would give us as recommendations. And they said, do not put them in residential zones or near residential zones. And then they said at least 250 to 350 feet away from residential areas. And that's why we have it as a conditional use, right? Because we'll get to that in just a second. One of the other things that we've required that we don't normally require is that additional notice requirements for property owners within a half mile. And the reason is the standard is stay in place orders for a half mile. But we feel like individuals who are within a half mile radius should have the option to come in and hear about this and have a say in it. We require it to meet all NFPA 855 standards, which Yellow Throat talked to you all a little bit about, and that it would be certified UL 9540. As I told you, the international, sure.
To go back to the previous, I don't know if this is something that will come back to us. We just approved a rezoning to M1 in the county. Now we're proposed, saying down the road somewhere, should these kind of jive?
Well, that would be a question. Recognize that in the county, your density isn't what it is in the city. I'm going to show you some maps in just a minute of our M1s and our M2. which is going to be a lot different. Where yellow throat is, if you have a half mile stay in place order, you don't have any residents within that half mile. Think about the city at a half mile, so it's a little different. And we're going to get to that, so.
Okay, thank you.
International Fire Chief recommendation is 300 feet from any residential structure, and we've already talked about incident response. I'm going to show you the maps, and then I'm going to let Matt kind of talk to you about his research on this. I will tell you that we did have a serious discussion between staff whether we should do a moratorium on these or not. In the end, we felt like we should go forward with this, but Matt's going to talk to you about why this is so important especially in a highly populated, densely populated area. So when we look at M1, the light blue is M1 and the green is the residential. When we first considered M1, and in our first draft among staff, we put M1. But then when we started working on GIS, we started looking, and as you can see, M1 is pretty much near residential areas. This map is also M1, your light blue. So we really took a step back after we had learned what we had learned, and we looked at our M2. Now this is our M2. As you can see, M2 is not near, for the most part, residential areas. There are a few, and Frank, that's why you need a conditional use.
Yeah.
But as you can see, our M2s are pretty much outside residential zones. So that would be, that would be the reason why in a city it would be why we're recommending M2. I know that we've talked to Hempel. I think that Hempel would like for us to relook at the M1, and we discussed it. But at this point, with our research and with Matt and Josh Dixon, his fire chief research, we felt like M2 would be appropriate. Chairman Dixon, that doesn't mean like in 2 years when the technology's better, when we have more information, that we wouldn't come back and move it into M1, and make that. But at this point, with what we know, we feel like the safest route, and that's what we're really looking at. We want to be as safe as possible at the beginning of this technology. In 2 or 3 years, we should go more. We may be able to be more flexible. Matt, do you want to talk to them about thermal runaway and some of the issues that can sometimes happen?
Yep, so I can. Yep, thanks for taking a lot of my spiel. I appreciate that.
Matt, hang on one second.
Yep.
Name and address.
He's already done it.
Okay.
I can do it again. Do I need? I'm Matt Anderson.
You're good.
So, okay.
Thank you.
So thermal runaway, it's uncontrollable self-heating of the battery cells themselves. So it's an exothermic reaction. These cells inside these batteries heat up, start producing off-gassing. Mostly it looks like it's hydrogen, carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide. These things overheat and tend to catch fire inside of these containers that they're built in that Don showed you. There are explosion risks along with fire risks that are associated with these. And then just the sheer amount of time that it seems that it takes for the recommendation, since we're not supposed to put water on them and to let them burn, is what the national recommendation seems to be, and from talking to experts around the country that have dealt with these in the past, just the sheer amount of time that it takes for these incidents to be mitigated. It also requires specialized training to be able to go in and remove these batteries, take all that out. These are hazardous materials incidents that are just on fire. It's not just like a normal house fire. So from that point, that's beyond the capabilities of what we're able to provide locally as a fire department. So our main point at this is just going to be life safety. We're going to evacuate the immediate area. Don touched on the evacuation zones immediately. We're going to provide air monitoring all the way around the scenario, or all the way around the incident as it occurs. Now, and I'm not saying as time goes on, if all those readings are coming back okay, that those areas will shrink, but they may also grow depending on wind, humidity, that type of part, depending on the time of the year. You touched on the 2 different tiers. Talked about that. Evacuation. So I did, or like I just want to make sure that we talk about that as well again and hit on that it's going to overtax our emergency services if we do have one of these incidents. We don't have enough.
How often does this happen?
So this year there's been, from what I could find looking online, there's been 11 incidents this year. Since about 2017, I think I could find about 65 of them. And that's different battery technologies, and that's another thing. So that, like we talked about, the technology is always changing. It seems to be improving. These systems do seem to be getting safer as time goes on, but there are still failures that are occurring. Different chemistries make them up. There's lithium iron phosphates, different types of battery systems that are in place. So instead of trying to nitpick each individual chemistry and provide something for that, just providing a blanket statement that covers all the battery systems as they're implemented. But talking with Chief McKinney today, making sure with the police department, when we talked about having to close roads for multiple days, making sure that we protect the infrastructure, we keep people out of the area. He's voicing his concerns about staffing as well with the police department, making sure that we have enough people to keep everyone away and keep them safe when one of these incidents do occur in the city, since our density is so much higher.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission?
Yeah, did I understand you to say that the accepted thing to do when one explodes or catches fire is just to let it burn out?
Yes, sir. So water, most of these are inside these metal containers. They're built pretty stout containers. If we pour water on them from the outside, they sit outside all year round, so they do have environmental protection. We're not actually able to get inside of the racks where these battery systems are. And then with speaking with some of the experts out of New York, they've been kind of the front runners on these systems and developing techniques. And with the FDNY, talking to them, just letting them burn out, it speeds up the process. If we're putting water on it, because it's a chemical reaction, it's not just a fire.
Yeah.
The chemical reaction that's occurring, we can cool it down, but that actually extends the process of the burning and makes the incident last longer than it just burning off on its own.
Sure would be nice if you had some kind of sprinkler system inside.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Questions for the city attorney?
Yeah, I'm not finished with the ordinance, but yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Current situation, without these amendments, are these facilities allowed in the city?
Yes, we have nothing that would restrict them. I think what would probably happen is if we didn't pass this, I believe that Matt, I don't want to talk for you and Josh, but I believe that Matt and Josh would probably come to the city commission and ask for a moratorium until we have something in place.
At this point, to make sure that we have the safest systems possible being installed and they meet all the current national certifications.
Okay. But the lack of action leaves us unregulated. Thank you. Thank you. Please proceed.
Thank you. So that was our zoning portion of it, and I kind of wanted to give you all the rationale why in the city we feel like M2 is the appropriate place at this point. So, general requirements, we would require them to meet all of the building code, We would require them to meet all of the mechanical zones, all of the NFPA 13 as well as NFPA 855 standards. I think you probably heard from Yellow Throat, they kind of talked about NFPA 855 standards. We would adopt those standards. Those standards are evolving, but by including this in there, as they evolve, we evolve with them. And so as best practices improve on how to deal with these, we'll be taking those best practices. And then if the NFPA requires it, we would require that all of the plans would go to our fire chief or his designee for approval. It will require a site plan to come to you all. It will require an engineered site plan as well as a site plan with application fees, a commissioning plan. We will require a fire safety compliance plan, and that would go to Josh and to Matt for their approval. System property operation and maintenance manual, and then we would also require a decommissioning plan. And we'll get to decommissioning in just a minute and why that's so important and what we learned this week about decommissioning. Additional regulations is we will require 24 hours a day monitoring. We heard why that was so important with Warwick. You want to kind of talk about their monitoring system and what happened there, Warwick?
So in New York, the city that we talked to yesterday that had the incidents that occurred, theirs was monitored by the actual utility company themselves. They were located at substations. The power company was the one that monitored them. They received alarms, but they'd been having trouble with their alarms for the past month.
and it was never transmitted to 911 when the fire alarm systems went off. A fire department member actually going outside, I think is what you said, right, Brian? Fire department member walking outside actually heard the alarm coming from the facility, and the fire department investigated and called the utility company themselves. So just making sure that we're notified when these incidents occur, because sometimes nobody local is available from the company that can check on these incidents immediately.
So, excuse me, we are going to require 24-hour-a-day monitoring by who?
It will be monitored electronically, but it will be monitored by a person. So in this case, it was a system that wasn't personally monitored at a location. This will require personal monitoring. When we talk to Yellow Throat, I believe that when they bring you their plan, theirs will be 24-hour-a-day monitoring, but I don't want to talk. But this will be monitored by a human being. It won't just be
By an employee of the company.
yeah, or a company. So it should be like ADT or
Alarm monitoring service.
Yes. So
Okay. Thank you.
we would require that utility lines and electrical circuitry be underground as, if possible. Signage compliance with the National Electrical Code. Lighting, one of the things that we've learned is some of these places are not lit well and will require lighting because when we have public safety come, they need to be able to see where they're going. So we will have some lighting requirements on that as well. Vegetation and tree cutting for potential fire or combustible issues close to it. Noise, Chairman Dixon talked about noise. Ours would be 50 decibels as measured from the next structure over that. So it wouldn't be, so I want to make sure I have that right. It's 50 decibels during the day, 25 feet from the facade of any residence or occupying community building away from that. So the next residence over, and 45 at night. And you are correct, and I think they explained to you, a lot of the noise that we understand that comes from this is the HVAC systems, because each one of these has HVAC to try to help with a thermal runaway, or just to keep it cool so you don't have thermal runaway. Screening requirements will require 7-foot fence, and then outside that will require trees. That should help with all the noise issues that come with that. So the final part that we have is decommissioning. And I should say that when we were working on our part, Brian Bishop and Jennifer Marks were working on the county ordinance. And so they really did do the lion's share of the decommissioning research and the work on that. You will see it's going to require a bond to be held for the site so that the site can be returned to its pre-battery state once the operations end. Do you want to say anything about the bonding before I go into the rest?
One thing that we have discussed about bonding is that it be reviewed by a third party. Not that we would not trust any applicant providing the bond amounts for reclamation, but we would like that to be reviewed by people who have more experience than we do, because we do not have the experience of this. And we would request that the bonding be done for the entire amount of reclamation, not a percentage.
Brian?
Sir?
Question, I've got clarification. I mean, we've already kind of opened the gate to some extent, basically, with all the solar systems that we've already okayed coming in. Now, those systems, don't they have some kind of storage on those systems also, or not?
Are you talking about the solar systems?
Yes.
The ones that we've seen, Commissioner Arnold, I believe for the most part, those are going to distribute. They're not going to retain. My memory is that they would have transmission capability only, not storage.
Just curious about that.
So briefly, we would request that they have to engage a licensing battery recycling location. Let me take one step back, I apologize. When we met on Monday seems like a long time, it was yesterday. with Warwick, one of the things that they explained to us, which I don't think any of us realized until they explained it, is they had 2 fires within a 48-hour period. And so they had to burn themselves out there. And I will tell you, there was a school that was closed for 7 days during this period of time because they were in the zone. But one of the things that they talked to us about is the fact that once these burn, they really are, that's when they are really toxic at that point. And so one of the things that they have to do is get, correct me if I'm saying anything wrong, what they told us, is a DOT permit to move hazardous materials. And so at this point, they still had those on site because they were still working and trying to get the facilities moved. They'll get moved, but it just tells you how difficult the decommissioning is. And that's one reason we want to make sure that at the get-go, we have decommissioning standards in place so that we're not fighting with them. Did I say anything incorrect? No. Okay. All decommissioning permits and trainings will be at the project owner's expense. All contractors and subcontractor will receive site-specific training. So they'll need to be able to come on site and receive the training, not just training out here, but to this site so that they understand what they're dealing with. It was something that Jennifer and Brian found was an issue. At decommissioning, battery facilities will be fully discharged, that all the systems will have their fluids drained, the equipment will be recycled or disposed of, that fencing and foundation will be removed, concrete pads will be removed. The city engineer will work with the landowners to determine if an access road can remain or be removed. And I'm assuming if the county has that on the county engineer. Substations will be removed with components being removed to a depth of 4 feet. And if we want the site to be where it is before, and be able to be farmed if necessary. The reclamation period is really, it's 12 months, but it's really 24 months if you think about it, because they have to start within 12 months of it being no electrical energy being produced at that point. So really it's a 24-month period. The owner will have 1 year from the 12-month period to get the project decommissioned, and they will notify you all within 30 days before the conclusion to make sure that the Planning Commission is watching that. It's going to we require it to comply with all federal, state, and local regulations. You all really get the lion's share. Is there anything you want to add to decommissioning? No.
I think they're doing a good job.
And the bond's going to be used, it's going to be set with they want a third-party professional to set it, and they want it looked at every 3 years. So you all are requiring it to be looked at every 3 years and reevaluated to make sure that the bond is still appropriate at that point. The one other thing that I did want to say was when we presented this to the City Commission, we met with officials with Hempel who are looking or have explored this. One of the things they asked us to do is look to see if maybe we could do a 3-tier system, tier 1, and then tier 2 and tier 3. When we looked around, we couldn't find the other systems that really allowed that. There was one I think Jennifer found, but we just felt like at this point, we're not ready to do that. But like I said, if the technology improves, we would certainly be open to that. If the technology gets to where, in 2 years, and it's not just the battery technology, it's also the container technology. In Warwick, it was the container that caused the problem. It had some issues apparently that caused water to get in and caused the thermal runaway. Correct? This is outside my scope. That's why I keep looking at Matt. And so we do think that the technology is coming along, but we do want to be very careful as we walk through this. I will try to answer any questions you all have. Probably Beth will be, if you have technical questions, better able to answer those.
Thank you. Any questions for these folks?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
The security,
Mhm.
we're talking about 7-foot fence.
Yes.
Now, shouldn't that be a little bit different on this right here? Security should be more upgraded, being as the battery plant and substation too, right there together. No, where the, say, a locked fence where people can't get in.
I'm going to get,
Yeah,
Brian's
wires
the
around
one
the
who
top.
actually worked on the security.
Commissioner Gibson, I think we're open to suggestions there. We use the seller ordinance for reference, which is pretty that was the standard language there, so that way they would be similar. I think we're open to suggestions from a fencing standpoint. We're not experts in that, so that's why we referred back to an approved ordinance. But I believe you would have a greater security presence from the operator, and that they would have it monitored 24/7 with cameras and things of that nature. We're certainly open to suggestions on that.
Man, correct me if I think, Gary, maybe what you're saying, you thinking something comparable to a current
In
substation.
this world nowadays, the more security you got, the better off you are. But we got some weird people up there. So, no. And that is something new.
We're certainly open to suggestions.
But I know it will be done safe by the state rules and everything. But I'd be more concerned about the security with a solar system, no. So nothing they can do there, hardly. But this right here, they could do damage real quick. So good.
Do these facilities contain much copper?
As far as the chemistry of the batteries anymore, that's ever changing. The latest ones, I think, lithium
No,
iron
what
phosphate.
what I'm
but
talking about.
You're talking about the
is that
wiring and.
Would these be an attraction to copper thieves?
I'm unsure of that question, as far as the transmission lines that go underground to the substations and all that, sir.
Yeah, to that point, if you require underground transmission lines, that would be harder to get to as well, yeah. Yeah.
I think that it's also important to note, John did mention it, but she definitely should have, in that currently there are no battery ordinances in the state. So we are trailblazing here. There is, the state tasked the Center for Infrastructure and Economic Development to have a local policy board that is looking into solar, wind, battery. And Commissioner Gibson, just on that, they do suggest a 7-foot fence. In there, they have like a proposed how you would write the ordinance, but again, it's going to be different from place to place. But we do not have anywhere in Kentucky to look at for a battery ordinance at this point. So we were kind of pulling all of our, anything we could find at this point, so.
Any other questions? We have anybody in the audience who has a question on this, about this project? I'd like to speak to it, please, sir. Name?
Brad Bickett,
Address?
105th Street.
Promise.
105th Street. Yeah, 105th Street, Henderson, Kentucky.
Promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Very good. Please proceed.
Planning Commission, I am the General Manager of Henderson Municipal Power and Light, and we serve approximately 12,000 customers in and around the city of Henderson. And there is a reason, just getting basically on the comment about the lack of an ordinance, for the state of Kentucky has not yet had as much of a need for this type of facility as what we see is coming very quickly. Henderson Municipal Power and Light supports regulation of battery energy storage systems. For your information, there are many technologies that are considered battery energy storage facilities, many of which are lithium-ion type chemistries. And we've been working with a couple of different consultants that work on these projects across the United States for over 2 years now. And what we realize at this point, the price of the lithium carbonate has actually decreased very drastically over the past couple of years. It went up and peaked at the end of 2022, and it's come down very, very quickly. You all have a pretty good sense, I think, of the amount of wind and solar that's coming to replace a lot of the older traditional power plants that we have in this country. What's very important to realize is that a key piece of that transition is going to be being able to store power. Energy storage systems have been around for many, many years. Pumped hydro, various other different types of chemical type storage is there. And what has happened, specifically in recent years, is that due to the technology and the chemistries with lithium type batteries, the energy density is there, cost is there. We see, and what basically our projections, our analysis shows that our customers could realize, significant savings in power costs compared to if we're not able to adopt battery storage systems. When I was first provided a draft of this ordinance, it allowed for use in light industrial zones. Had that reviewed by a couple of different consultants that we've been working with, and we agreed with following the latest industry standards, which are changing very quickly. These incidents that you hear about, they're getting a lot of attention in the media, a lot of attention. We went to try to compare failure rates, and we're looking at a technology that is considered safer than what these other incidents mostly have been, which is called NMC, nickel, manganese, cobalt type chemistry, which we're looking at lithium iron phosphate. And so it's an iron-based cathode rather than the nickel-based cathode. The fact is that as these things are happening, the standards are actually evolving at the same time. So every one of these cases is being investigated, and it's under a magnifying glass. Actually, one of the consultants we're working with is speaking on this to other folks across the United States. I want the decision makers in our community to understand not just the risk, okay? There's risk there, it's absolutely true. But let's focus on how we can use this technology correctly and safely. And let's not exempt or put our community at a disadvantage and not allow it to be used, because we've got 7 substations around town. This ordinance, without being able to put these facilities in M1, it's actually going to derail a project we've got right now that we were planning on doing. Bids are going to be open in November 17th. Some of the misinformation is being shared. The gases that are, what happens in one of these thermal runaway events is, it's more of a smoke event. It's a smoldering type of chemical reaction. The primary gases that are put off is carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, and hydrogen. So if you don't ventilate the hydrogen, yes, you could have an explosion. But other than that, it's not an explosive event. There's discussions and talk right now about separating. The key is you separate these modules. You don't want the chemical reaction to propagate. So that's the number one thing that has to happen. You have to have proper ventilation. The predominant suppression right now is aerosol-based systems, not water. But under the NFPA, the water is required to be a part of that. What I want you all to know is that for the local utility, we would absolutely employ whatever measures are necessary to ensure the safety of the people in our community. But I don't want to tell our larger industrial customers who want to put a battery in that we can't do it for them. For your information, there's 2 tiers. At tier 1, 600 kilowatt hours. One of the things that wasn't mentioned earlier is the battery's rated on 2 factors. It's a capacity over a time period. Most of the batteries are rated on a 4-hour duration. So a 200 megawatt battery, you provide that amount, theoretically, over a 4-hour period. For a 600 kW of tier 1, you're talking about 150 kW, okay? So it's 1,000 kilowatts, 1 megawatt, right? We, as the local utility, really have a need for systems between 1 and 20 megawatts. 1 and 20, okay? That tier 1's a 150 kW. Since the tracking for these battery failures has been happening in 2018, there's been 11 failures in that size that's been in the database. That's based on what we saw. Cell failure rates have gone, in the past 20 years, have gone from 1 in 200,000 to 1 in 10 million. And that's, again, it's a very broad look at battery storage because they are all different. The technology matters. So they are being made more safely all the time, like it was mentioned earlier. It's happening so quickly, I'm afraid, and I really feel like, that we're going to be cutting ourselves short if we don't put the right ordinance in place to begin with. Now, obviously, it can be amended, but that's the primary.
Can I get you to cut to the chase here? Are you wanting us to approve these in M1 zones with the conditional use permit? Or
Correct.
what?
I would like M1 zone with conditional use.
Okay.
And that's what was provided to me originally in the draft, and then it was changed before it was presented to the city. And M1 was struck out. You know, there's, I think there's just I certainly want to do it safely, but we need to be able to provide the right resources for our customers. And also, I want to tell you, I did try to compare it to what conventional infrastructure failure rates are. What you'll find interesting is that data is not being collected. It's being collected on these battery systems because they're new. So people focus on the fear. I can tell you that our substations around town, each one of them can carry the equivalent of 80,000 horsepower of electrical energy. And why do we not have a concern for that? It's because the protection systems that are in place are mature and they're dependable. For these types of systems, we would have the right battery management system in place to make sure that if a cell's overheating, it could disconnect itself. And you wouldn't have that thermal runaway situation. So there's ways to do this right, and I prefer we do it right than we blanket approach and not do it at all in certain areas. That's my comments, and I'll take any other questions.
Any questions for this gentleman?
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I jump in real quick?
Yes.
From a planning commission standpoint, the rezoning process is the same, whether it's from zone X to M1 or M2, and the conditional use process would be the same as well. So from a timing, from a mechanism standpoint, it's all the same whether it's M1 or M2.
Except the amendments as proposed would not allow it in M1.
Correct, but from a procedural standpoint, from a rezoning standpoint, like for example, Hempel's sites now, none of which are zone industrial at any capacity. So the rezoning process is going to be the same for Hempel, whether it's M1 or M2.
And that's what I came up to tell you. If you place it, right now, the substations that Hempel has are either zone agricultural or general business. So even if you were to do what he requests and amend it to M1, and we kind of explained to you all our rationale why we feel like at this point we want it in M2, is that they have the opportunity to come to you and rezone to M2 right now, because none of their substations that they're looking at right now are zone appropriate for industrial use. I don't mean they're not zone appropriate right now, but to do battery storage, they'll have to come to you to go through the rezoning process. So I think what Brian said, I'm an attorney, so I like to talk, is that they'll have to come to you and they can request the M2 when they come to you. Is that what?
Okay. Thank you very much. Other questions? Anyone else in the audience like to address these proposed amendments? One way or the other?
I guess I had one more comment on that. I know the procedure of rezoning and either codes or Brian, whoever can answer this question. So if you had a lot in town surrounded by residential that is general business currently, is there additional criteria that would have to be met to be M2 versus M1, or is the same criteria applied to whether it could be zoned either? I guess, is it equally easy in the middle of a residential area to go M1 or M2? I was thinking there was some additional criteria that would make it harder to go M2 in the middle of a neighborhood.
I think there's a two-part answer there. First part, from a plan commission standpoint, a procedural question is that no, there's no difference. We would still follow the same process, but I think what you're referring to is the ordinance would require a half-mile notification, not just any property that touches or across the road.
Well, I was talking more hypothetically, independent of this discussion on Barry, just zoning in general. I was still thinking there was some checks and balances in place, that it's not as easy to put M2 in the middle of a neighborhood as it is M1. And maybe M1 and M2 are equal, and it's other zoning that's different criteria.
From a procedural standpoint, they're equal in that we would go through the same process. You may have more requirements in an M2 zone as far as screening and things like that, and distances from residential. Is that what you're referring to?
That's what I was, yeah.
So, and if I may, so we kind of have been looking at this from a GI standpoint. So Hempel's site on 60 West, you'll notice is in the cyan blue color. The circle is a half mile. So God forbid there ever is a shelter-in-place order, this is the number of parcels that it will affect. So for example, Gibbs, Audubon Metals, things like that are shelter in place until there is proper readings from the air quality standpoint to allow them to leave. I think that is part of the reason why we were adamant about the M2, the conditional use, and the notification of a greater area. Not to speak for Dawn, but back to the main question is, from a procedural standpoint, it's the same from a rezoning process.
Can I point out one other thing? The city of Henderson, a couple of years ago, brought you all the change in our zoning, section 4.16. I'm trying to pull that up. But we actually gave the planning commission the power that when you all do a map amendment or rezone, that you also can do conditional use. So, you have it?
We can.
Right. And so if someone came in to do a map amendment to get to M2, recognize at that time you could also hear a conditional use. So you all could place the conditions on it. That's different than from the county. Because I know they have to put a BOZA on theirs. But if the city, so if you had a map amendment, you all could look at M2, but also at that point, I would suggest, or I would think that what you all would want to do is also look at the conditional use at that point, if a conditional use was required, like the proposed. The proposed is M2 with a conditional use. So in this situation, a map amendment could come to you all along with a conditional use, and you all can really look at this at that point and then place the conditions on it that you feel were appropriate.
Could that conditional use originate with the planning commission, or would it have to be submitted by the applicant?
It would have to be submitted by the applicant.
Okay.
But if I were the applicant, I probably would want to do that, but I don't know. You know, that would be up to the applicant. But yes, that is something that you all can do. That was something that we thought made more sense and would streamline the process more, so that people don't have to always come to you, get the map amendment, and then go to both.
Commissioner Boyd, we typically don't do that because historically the Planning Commission is not very knowledgeable of conditional use and the requirements for conditional use permits. It's typically not in our wheelhouse, so we have always encouraged it to go city BOZA. Not that it's not possible, but it's just not something we deal with on a regular basis.
The rules are a lot different.
Still possible.
The city commission has discussed these proposed amendments.
Yes, sir.
Have they voted on these proposed amendments?
Well, they voted to send it to you all for
Okay.
a public hearing. So,
And so we're-
so yours would just be a recommendation to them, and then it would come back for 2 readings.
Okay.
If you all recommended it.
Very good. So we're back in the, making the recommendation or not.
It's required to come here first, have a public hearing to make a recommendation.
So they had enough of a discussion to decide to send this version of these amendments to us.
Yes, sir.
Very good. Any other questions? Anybody else in the audience tonight have a question or comment about these proposed amendments? As has been said, we're plowing some new ground.
So Don, do you want to see us do all of these at once, or you want to see separate motions on solar energy, battery energy?
No, I think because we're creating a new chapter in zoning, I think we plan to do it if you all go forward with it as one ordinance for the city, because it's all one chapter.
Which is Article 36.
Yes, sir. It will be Article 36 if you all, city commission.
Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion in regard to the addition of Article 36 to the city zoning ordinance having to do with renewable energy systems and battery energy storage systems, as presented. What is the pleasure of the commission?
I'll make a motion that the city zoning text amendment be approved as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Heather Tays,
Yes.
Frank Boyette,
Yes.
Kevin Herron,
Yes.
Stacy Denton.
Yes.
Gary Gibson,
Yes.
XR Royster,
Yes.
Mac Arnold,
Yes.
Kevin Richard.
No.
Very good. Motion passes. I think that concludes the business that we have on our agenda in public hearing. I'll entertain a motion to leave public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of leaving public hearing, say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? We are out of public hearing. First non-public hearing item is the October finance report. Ms. Brandon, I think you're going to help us with that?
Yes, we're at 38% as of the end of October, and here to answer your questions.
Any questions on the October finance report?
That's you.
I'll entertain a motion in regard to the October finance report.
Make a motion to approve the October finance report.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of approval of the finance report, say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Finance report is approved. The next item is the McDonald's revised site plan. Ms. Marks.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. submitted by McDonald's Restaurant for the property located in the city of Henderson at 2053 US Highway 41 North, being parcel ID number 55-90. The applicants are requesting its amended site plan approval. So you all remember, I think it's been a couple months when we originally saw their updated site plan for the 41 location. Not to be confused with the Green Street location that was updated probably a year ago-ish now. So the main change that's on there, and the applicant is here and can answer any of the questions you all might have, but they decided to move forward with maintaining the single drive-through line as opposed to the original plan they submitted, which showed the double lanes. And because of its location on 41 North, as well as changing the traffic pattern with, as a lot of you know, there's a lot of traffic kind of cuts through that little area there. We thought it was important to bring it back to the Planning Commission for review. And like I said, most notably, the main change is really that they are just maintaining that single lane of traffic as opposed to the two drive-throughs.
Any questions for staff from the commission? How do you expect this change to affect the traffic pattern?
Based on the location that it's at, this is honestly a better moving forward, I think, in a more positive, just because of the traffic flow from the back section, as you all know, kind of cuts through that parking lot there, and people come and go there. And so at this point, this will maintain the way that it has always been. So.
Okay. Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion in regard to the McDonald's revised site plan as presented.
Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve McDonald's revised site plan to the McDonald's restaurant for the property located in the city of Henderson, 2053 US 41 North, PID 55-90.
Second. Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Kevin Richard.
Yes.
Mac Arnold.
Yes.
XR Royster.
Yes.
Gary Gibson.
Yes.
Stacy Denton. Yes. Kevin Herron.
Yes.
Frank Boyette.
Yes.
Heather Takes. Yes.
Very good. Motion passes. We have administrative business in regard to rezoning 1154. Mr. Bishop.
Yes, sir. The Plan Commission may remember that we had a rezoning at last month's meeting. The Plan Commission voted 6-5 to recommend to the Board of Commissioners not to rezone the property from Ag to R2. You directed staff to come back with findings of fact in support of that decision. We have passed out those findings of fact. If it is the pleasure of the Plan Commission, I will read those into the record. They're quite lengthy. But for the benefit of those in attendance, I will do that if you would like for me to.
Please do so.
Excuse me. The Henderson City County Planning Commission held a regular meeting on Tuesday, October 3rd, 2023, to conduct a public hearing to consider rezoning 1154. The Planning Commission voted at the October 3rd, 2023 regular meeting to recommend that the Henderson Board of Commissioners disapprove, deny, or not approve the request to rezone 13.106 plus or minus, which was submitted by HCM LLC and David and Peggy Watkins, the applicants, for the property located in the city of Henderson at Wesley Drive, being parcel ID number 65-22.2. The applicants requested a zoning change map amendment from agricultural to medium density residential with a graphic development plan restricting the property to only single-family residences. The matter was tabled until this November 7th, 23 regular meeting for staff to prepare a proposed motion and findings of fact that is consistent with the record of the Planning Commission's hearing at that meeting. The motion, I move that the actions of the October 3rd, 2023 readings recommending disapproval be hereby ratified and confirmed. And I move that the Planning Commission recommend that the Henderson Board of Commissioners, the city, disapprove, not approve rezoning application number 1154, which seeks to change the zoning classification from agricultural to residential 2 zoning classification with a development plan, restricting the development to single family only, among other things, the subject properties, and I leave the motion open for other members of the Planning Commission to add findings of fact in support of this motion. The proposed rezoning is not in agreement with the future land use map of the comprehensive plan. The future land use map of the comprehensive plan shows the subject property developing as low-density residential R1, and the applicant has requested medium-density residential R2, with the development plan agreeing to restrict the subject property to only single-family residences and agreed in the public hearing to no on-street parking. The medium-density zoning classification would allow smaller lots and more lots than the low-density R1 zoning would allow, among other things. The requested R2 zoning classification is inappropriate because the proposed map amendment rezoning is not in agreement with the goals and objectives of the comprehensive plan, and that the proposed map amendment would not wisely plan for land uses in appropriate locations to maximize quality design and minimize the adverse impacts of development, balancing land use goal, identify areas of opportunity for infill, redevelopment, and adaptive reuse that respects the area's context and design features, balancing land use objective A, promote stability of existing neighborhoods and all aspects of housing, including infill, redevelopment, and encourage new development where appropriate, healthy neighborhoods objective A, foster a sense of place by including elements that contribute to community pride, healthy neighborhood objective F. Summary of findings of fact. A full transcript of the October 3rd, 2023 public hearings regarding rezoning 1154 is attached here too and incorporated herein by reference to provide a full understanding of the proceeding, in addition to the following brief summary and findings of fact. The applicants presented evidence and testimony in support of the application and answered questions and agreed to execute a narrative development plan restricting the development to only single-family dwellings and providing for no on-street parking. The applicant stated it was not financially feasible to develop an R1 subdivision. 10 area resident citizens testified in opposition to the application. Several testified multiple times. One citizen testified with general information which was neither for or against the rezoning. The HWU engineer answered questions and provided information about drainage. The city engineer testified mainly about traffic. Without detracting from the transcript or from the following more detailed summary and findings of fact, the main objectives were: 1, that the existing streets are not adequate to safely handle additional traffic created by the development. 2, as the requested zone was R2 multifamily, area residents expressed a fear the development plan restricting the development to only single family could later be changed to allow multifamily development. 3, drainage and runoff. 4, on-street parking on Wesley Drive. Number 5, that the development would reduce property values of existing homes. Buffering, including existing tree line. And 7, maintenance of retention areas. The city engineer testified mainly about traffic and the adequacy of the existing streets to handle traffic. A representative of Henderson Municipal Water Utility testified about drainage and runoff. The applicants agreed to enter into a narrative development plan restricting the property in such a way that there would be no on-street parking and that the development would be restricted to only single-family structures development. Wesley Drive is 30 feet in width with on-street parking on both sides of the street. The houses along Wesley Drive are elevated above street level. Wesley Drive cannot handle the additional traffic proposed by the development. There is no traffic control at the intersection of Wesley Drive and Pebble Creek Drive. There is no traffic control at the intersection of Pebble Creek Drive and Highway 60. The area residents testified it is difficult or impossible to see oncoming traffic entering Pebble Creek Drive from Wesley Drive. Citizens wanted the existing tree line left in place. One citizen asked the applicants to request that if the matter be tabled so that the neighbors could meet with their property owners and the developer. The applicant stated that they were open to discussions with the neighbors but wanted to continue the hearing and vote tonight. There have been no major changes of an economic, physical, or social nature within the area that have altered the basic character of the property since the adoption of the comprehensive plan. Rezoning the property to residential 2 and the additional traffic could adversely affect other properties in the area. At least some of the neighbor citizens were in favor of the rezoning to R1 single family with wider lots, etc., but were opposed to R2.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments from the commission on these proposed findings of fact? If these would be approved this evening, this matter would move on to the city commission for their consideration, correct?
Correct.
Cannot do so until we have findings of fact in place, right?
Yes, sir.
And to clarify, the motion is to either adopt or not adopt these finding of facts.
Yes.
Because all other parts of this have been handled by the previous motion.
Yes.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? I'll entertain a motion on the proposed findings of facts for rezoning 1154. As presented.
Mr. Chairman, I'd offer a motion to adopt the finding of facts for rezoning 1154 as read into the record.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Kevin Richards.
Yes.
Mac Arnold.
No.
XR Royster.
No.
Gary Gibson.
Yes.
Stacy Denton.
Yes.
Kevin Herron.
Yes.
Frank Boyette.
Yes.
Heather Tays.
Yes.
Very good, the motion passes. We have other business having to do with our upcoming meeting schedule. Mr. Bishop?
Yes, sir. The staff would ask a favor and request that the January 2nd Plan Commission meeting be moved to January 3rd. The reason why is it's difficult for us to come back and have everything ready to go at the January 2nd meeting. As you know, we would be off for New Year's Day. So our request is that you give us a day of breathing room.
Breathing room?
A day of breathing room.
geez.
How about
Some of us
recovery?
have to work on it first.
That's one way to put it. Breathing room sounds so
Is
much
one
more
day enough, or do you need two?
I think we can make do.
What
with
kind
all.
of party you planning?
Morning, maybe a week.
We're not quite that level of aggressiveness anymore on the celebration.
Yeah. So the suggestion would be that we would meet on a Wednesday evening, January 3, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Anybody got any comments, questions? Do we need a motion and a vote to move our meeting date?
Yes.
I'll entertain such.
Put it in the form of motion, move to January the 3rd.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of moving the meeting date to January 3, say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Good. Get that on your calendar. Anybody have any other business they'd like to bring before us? Anyone? Anybody in the audience have something that they'd like to talk about tonight? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of adjournment, say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Thank you very much, folks. We stand adjourned.